Hey, it's the podcast guy.
Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast.
And there it is! Sutton United at the GM Vauxhall Conference have put out First Division Coventry City, winners of the FA Cup themselves less than 2 years ago. And what a moment to enjoy for the fans of this Surrey side. They've had their moments before, but never one like this. But the whistle goes down. Delight for Sutton United. Sutton United from the National League are through to the last 16 of the FA Cup. No longer English football's perennial non-league club. A 123-year crescendo reaches a new peak for Sutton United, who are promoted to the Football League for the first time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast in association with Lucky Star Gin. I'm your host Mike, and with me on today's Christmas edition we have George and Neil. It's possibly one of history's biggest downgrades. I'm not wearing the Santa suit. I've taken the white out of the beard, and just to confirm, you can all see it is my beard. It was made white yesterday. It was actually my beard. In this episode, we're going to talk about the loss to Tamworth, and we're going to look forward to Barnet and in the St. Stephen's Day match, and we're going to wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas. We love hearing from you. We love the conversation. Stay connected, like, share, tweets, at me, whatever you want to do on all the social medias at Sutton Podcast. Likes and shares and comments really sort of boost the algorithm. So please do. It's really, really nice to see. Thank you. And it makes me feel a tiny bit appreciated. We're going to dive in and we're going to say hello, George. How have you been?
Yeah, I've been good. School's finished, so I'm all good. Thank you.
Excellent. And Neil, well, it should be thanks, but I've written thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks, Mike. Glad to be with you.
Excellent. We are going to move on, and I'm going to try and do it live again because it's been just an edited video recently, so we'll see how this goes. Knowing me, knowing you. So hopefully that worked. I like this segment. It just gets people to know us all a little bit better. And some of these random questions that I get thrown by the AI is actually quite funny. But today's one is, what is the best piece of Sutton United memorabilia you own, and what's the story? So, George, we'll start with you. What's your merch, memorabilia? What's the best thing you own, and what's the story behind it?
So, I don't know if you remember the end of the 22-23 season, maybe, when we drew with Carlisle. At the end of the game, me and my brother both called Jack Rose over, and he gave me his gloves and not him. Yes, that's probably it.
And how did he feel?
He was not happy about it.
Did he try and claim it's supposed to be one glove each?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'd be trying to do as well, to be fair. Excellent. Neil, what's yours?
Am I allowed two, Mike, with my customary I can't choose between?
Go on then.
So the first one, and I've been up in the loft this afternoon and I couldn't find it.
Ooh, so
but I know I've got it, which is the rosette from the 1969 Amateur Cup final, when sadly we lost to North Shields, because that was the first time of going to the old Wembley.
Mm-hmm.
So as an 8-year-old, nearly 9-year-old, that was incredibly exciting, because you only ever saw Wembley when it was the once a year when there was a live match on the telly when it was the cup final. And I was going to Wembley, and I insisted on wearing the rosette all the time, even sleeping in it. But my mother thought that was far too dangerous, so it had to be unpinned and pinned to my teddy that used to be by the side of my bed. I've still got the teddy as well somewhere.
I was just going to ask you, where's the teddy?
So that's the first bit, and the second bit of memorabilia is this, which is the Dundo shirt that I won through my association with the podcast, and I'd like to think that that's the last shirt that, in fact, Dundo wore representing us in our time when we're in the EFL. I can't remember which match it was, but I think that's where the shirt has probably come from, which is what I'm going to say it is. So that has great unique. That is a club legend, and I've got his shirt, and that's all thanks to me getting to know you, Mike. So
we're going to move on quickly. Don't do that. Mine is a silly one. I haven't actually got it. It's in the garage. I didn't even think of bringing the props on. But ages ago, I bought a flag, just an ordinary little flag, Sutton United flag, and it didn't really mean an awful lot, and it was forgotten about. And then I got a message out of the blue from Alison when she was in the shop, going, "Do you still have that flag?" Because they'd actually lost the design and measurements. So when the flags came back into existence, it was all through my flag, getting all the detail from my flag. And I think the sizing it might have been the Papa John's as well. They used it for the sizings for that as well. So that was my little thing, but not actually belonging to a player. That's outrageous. I should get stuff from belonging to players, to be fair. I might get Jaden's boot. I'll see how that goes. The one he's hobbling around in, not his actual football boots, obviously the hobble one. Right. Let us know your favourite piece of memorabilia and the stories behind them. Take the pictures and put them on social media and tag us in there and tell us about them. Who else has got rosettes? I'm sure someone will have something from way back then as well. Frankie, if you are listening, we know you went to the Anglo-Italian. You don't need to let us see all that stuff again. It is still a great story anyway. Club news. Didn't really pick up an awful lot this week. There's probably loads of things. Well, there is one major thing, but the shop is under new stewardship. And if you go in and mention the podcast, you won't get any discounts, but it'll irritate Vicky eventually. So just carry on with that. In all seriousness, good luck in the shop. And if people do have any suggestions for what they'd like to see in the shop, drop me a line and I'll pass them on. I don't think she's got email set up yet, so drop me a line. I'll pass them over. And any ideas she said great is I will definitely be passing them off as my own. The other piece of news which came out this week, and I don't think it's any official channels, but there was a reissue of some shares, and it seems as though some of our debt was made into share options. So some people, don't know whether it's one or more, have got a large chunk of extra shares in the club, which the worry people have had is the extra shares being produced, but I don't think it's any extra shares. I think it's just shares that were there and taken up an offer on, which means that the debt is clear. The more worrying aspect is the debt was about £1 million, and it's like, whoa, how are we gonna manage that going forward to make sure we don't end in debt? So Lewis Simper, you just get on the pitch, do some magic, and we'll sell you in the end of the season or something. Neil, did you look like you wanted to say something there? No. So you sort of drew a breath, and I thought, oh, he's got some news on this. So this organisation from the podcast, I still didn't get anyone organised to do the 3Q review because my life is just all over the place at the moment. Let's go, George. Start with you. How was the lineup and your expectations prior to the match? What did you think of the format, the team that we picked, and the match, or the expectations? Sorry.
I thought before the match it was going to be an incredibly difficult game to play, just because of the way Tamworth play, and they love the ball in the air. But when I saw the lineup, I thought it was a really strong lineup. Mm-hmm. But I did think Sigi was out, so I was a bit confused.
We'll come to that. We have theories on that. Yeah, I mean, even though of my dress attire yesterday, I was doing the interviews in hospitality. Lily, first of all, was brilliant. So if she listens, she was absolutely brilliant. Wasn't fazed by being interviewed by Santa Claus at all. But I also spoke to Steve Arnold, and he said the same thing. He said this Tamworth. He said it is not an easy match. He said these lot are really difficult to play against, and the style of play, he's as you were saying, George, he said it is a really tough game. But Neil, what were your thoughts on the lineup and the expectations?
I was obviously surprised to see Sidge in the lineup, but obviously was then party to the all-knowing people around us in the crowd saying that he needed to actually start the match so that we didn't fall foul of the National League Cup rules. And that was obviously, it was always planned that he was going to be on the pitch and then going straight off.
Yeah.
So that was to avoid a fine, or I presume, or some other wrath.
Yeah.
Of,
So George, there's some rules for the National League Trophy. You've got to play a number of players who either started the previous match or start the next match. Otherwise, they were concerned that you were going to just fill it full of people, under 21s again, and make a mockery of the competition that's already a mockery. So that's why we had to start someone. And I think it was intended that Sidgy was going to be starting this week anyway. But it just so happened that he couldn't play. So that's our theory. He didn't exactly confirm it, but when I said to him, I saw him just towards the end of the match, and I said, "We're thinking what you should have done is crashed into one of our players, gone down with your head, been concussed, and had to come off." And he was like, "Oh, that would have been a free sub then, wouldn't it?" And it was like, "Okay, you didn't exactly confirm what happened, but I think you kind of realised that where we were thinking." But yeah, he was fine. I mean, it's going to be a few weeks. It's a dislocated shoulder or torn. I think something was torn, and it was incredibly painful. He told me. Other wonder is, will he get his appearance fee?
Oh.
I mean, that's a question. Well, he did technically start, so will he get it? Who knows? Well, I don't think we'll ever find that out. But Neil, you said to me, in contrast to what you said to me the previous week, that it's been X number of games since we've scored, and then 10 minutes in, we scored. How did you feel at that point, and what did you think about the goal, which was kind of in front of us at that point?
It was a beautiful goal, and having watched it back, it is even more beautiful in the replay. It was just the perfect goal. And as I said, yes, it was 3 games that we hadn't scored. So the inference was to you that we were definitely going to score, which was right. I was then thinking that my prediction for the league as a 1-1 draw was going to come blissfully true, because I'd also got Will as the goal scorer. So I wasn't too disappointed or surprised when Tamworth scored later on, because I sort of expected it, and then I thought it was going to end as a 1-1 draw. I would have preferred a win.
Of course, yeah.
Of course, but obviously it went totally off script. Tamworth had forgotten to read it. So
what do you think of the actual goal? Because I mean, I heard some people say that Will didn't know an awful lot about it, which at the time I was like, I'm sure. Obviously, my memory's shocking. I was like, I'm sure he moved his feet on purpose.
That was deliberate. Yeah, absolutely deliberate. So that was a proper number 9's poaching goal.
Yeah, George, what did you think of the goal? I think it was right in front of you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was right behind the goal. It looked definitely on purpose from Will Davies.
Yeah,
and I think the assist was the best bit. He ran through like 4 players. Yeah, it was an amazing goal.
I put that on Instagram earlier. I said I'm convinced Josh Coley's Irish because of those river dance feet dancing through all those players. It's absolutely amazing. Sorry, my dog has just brought me a gift. My slipper, lovely. So we're 1-0 up. We were in control of the match. Did you feel at any point in that first half, George, that we could let it slip here? I personally felt we were in control, and it was a matter of when we were going to score next, not if. How were you feeling in that first half?
For the first 25 minutes-ish, I thought we were amazing and we were going to score again. When it got to the end of the half, they were putting on a bit more pressure, and I thought it was very us to concede. But I don't know. I thought we were quite comfortable.
Neil, what about yourself?
Yeah, I thought we looked comfortable. They were not able to cope with Josh at all. He was, and so we were getting the ball cutting back from the byline so many times, and it was just not falling to a forward. It was ricocheting off one of their defenders, or the defender was just getting to the ball first. So, and then somebody very wise around me, I can't remember, has said, I think we're going to rue not getting a second goal. And oh no, actually, it was somebody in the lose at half time, and I thought, yeah, I think you might be right, because I think Tamworth had won the toss, chosen to go with the wind in the second half, and with their tendency to lump the ball up and have a more of an aerial physical presence, thought that might cause us problems. But actually, it seemed to be the tricky players who were good on the ball, actually, on the break, that actually caused us the trouble in the end. And it wasn't the long ball aerial game that resulted in the goals.
I thought the wind actually dropped quite significantly in the second half.
It did.
So that's why I thought we might have chosen that way round. I know it's not usual. We usually prefer to attack that end in the second half. But I mean, you've briefly mentioned it, so we'll stick with that. Neil, obviously, half time, yeah, bit of chit chat going, we could be in trouble here if we don't do this. That's typical pessimistic Sutton fans. But they did score very, very early on. What was your view of it? I was kind of at the other end, so I didn't really see it that well. What was your view of the goal? And, well, you expected it, but how were you feeling at that point?
It looked as if we were still having our half-time oranges, and that we just hadn't woke. We seemed to be asleep at the back, and I thought, well, I'm not surprised. But at that stage, I thought we could still go on and score, because we'd been causing problems all the way through the first half. I expected it to be the same.
Okay, he didn't really want to say it, but he was hoping it stayed 1-1. He mentioned it earlier. He was like, "I don't care. Leave it as this for next week." But George, what was your view of that goal, and how were you feeling at that point?
Well, I kind of expected it, but I was still a bit disappointed, because at the end of the day, it was just a ball to the back post, and he just poked it in. It probably could have defended it a bit better.
See what Sutton's done to a young man, full of life, full of hope. We take a lead, and he expects us to give it away. That's what Sutton has done to this man. I thought it was quite quickly, but it was 20 minutes later that they took the lead. Similar thing. I mean, we've been very tight recently. I know we conceded a goal last week, but we've been generally quite tight. The absolute madness aside, but George, what do you think it was? Were they exploiting weaknesses? Was our our Christmas party at halftime? What do you think happened for that sort of second half?
I don't know. I expected them to hurt us with long balls, but it was more their tricky wingers.
Mm-hmm.
The one on their left winger was getting for us every single time. And I think it was their wingers.
Yeah. So what about yourself, Neil? What do you think's kind of changed from one of the episodes a couple of weeks ago was called Utterly Frugal, because that's how Andy was describing our defence at the time?
My impression was that he changed the perfect back three to bring in Harry, because he expected an aerial assault.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Ransom is better in the air than Hayden. And I think it backfired. We'd have actually probably been better off with the back three with Hayden in, because he's a bit faster, more fleet of foot. So we may have had less problems with their play down the wings with Hayden in the back three. So I think that was a tactical miscalculation, because I think that the best back three is Charlie, Hayden Muller and Tyler French.
But if you were picking the side to play Tamworth, you would be expecting the same thing.
I would have played Harry Ransom. So, you know, it's only with the benefit of hindsight that it was a tactical mistake.
We can't do the Football Manager thing of quit, reload, pick a different team. We can't do that cheat here. But what do you, Neil, think about our attacking side? Because start of the season, it was all very much, we'll score 4, let them score 3, it's fine. But that seems to have kind of gone a little bit. I mean, some people have been making note that Russia scored goals in the division below. Have we let him go on loan too soon? But it is the division below. It is teams that he's used to. What do you think's going not quite right? I'm not going to say wrong, but what's not going quite right in the attacking options?
We're a bit unbalanced. So with Topolog on the left of that midfield, he doesn't have the same sort of attacking threat as we had with Jadon. So we're a bit unbalanced, and it seems that obviously at the moment De Silva and Civi seem to be the ones that are out of favour. They're taking the fall for the performers against West Ham. So it was all relying on Josh down that right-hand side. They made a tactical change and negated Josh largely in the second half. So that's where we weren't creating as much potency in the second half. No trouble in the first half. Second half, they I think outsmarted us tactically, and we hadn't got the personnel on the bench. Nana is more a sort of, I see him more as a central role and a wide player, and we did have some chances. Even late on in the second half, I think it was Nana Boateng put one shot over the bar.
Yeah,
when perhaps he should. I think he had a little bit more time than he realised. Had he taken his time, I think he'd have put it away. And had it perhaps fallen to Naderson or Davis, that would have been in the back of the net.
Yeah, I saw a very uncharitable comment of his finishing ability. He was awful, something like that. He should never. He's not a forward. He can't score goals. And I'm like, I swear he scored a goal from that exact same position against Ebbsfleet. I'm like, absolutely convinced he's done that. George, what about yourself? What do you think of our kind of attacking options situation at the moment?
Well, I think we could play more of an out-and-out winger instead of Bessart Topolaj. Not saying he's a bad player. I think he's just better defensively than he is going forward. And I think Will Davies wins the ball so much. We should put more balls into him, more balls in the box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's come in, and it's coincided with our good run, and he's coming to shore us up defensively because we were just conceding goals left, right, and centre for a little while. So yeah, I think that'll be a big call to then get someone else and go, okay, well, you're on the bench. Like a Coley's now on the bench.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he's going to be extended. I think he's only to January. I'm not sure. So in terms of the season, we have dropped from 7th 2 games ago to 13th, I think. But we are only 3 points away from 7th again. Theoretically, if all the Boxing Day games go our way, we could be 7th again. What do you think? Does it have that much of an influence on the season, or are you kind of resigned we're going to have either a late run towards the playoffs or we're going to settle for mid-table, which I don't think would be the end of the world. But what do you reckon, George?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'd like us to go for playoffs, but we seem incredibly inconsistent. I don't know if we're quite good enough yet.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, at the beginning of the season, I think I expected us to be a little bit higher than we are now.
Yeah. Well, I'm just literally looking at the table now, and we are 3 points away from, as I say, 7th. 3 points below us is actually Tamworth, and they're 1 place below us. So we definitely pulling away from the other end of the table. But Neil, what do you think of it in terms of the season?
I think we are exactly where we should be. Halfway through the season, 9 wins, 9 losses, 5 draws.
GD of
That's
1.
probably as good as we could expect. And I'm still with you that I think we're likely to get more points in the second half of the season, provided we don't have any more bad luck with injuries and we don't lose our loans and all that sort of things are extended, the players that we've got and all that sort of situation. I wouldn't be surprised to see some new personnel coming in, depending on whether the board are going to back Steve. And I think any one of 6 or 7 teams could have that magic run and sneak that 6th and 7th places in the playoffs, which is what happened last season. So it could be us, it could be anybody, and there's a long way to go. And obviously, we're going to go on a big, we're going on a cup run.
Absolutely.
So we're going to beat Tamworth 4th of January because it will be our turn to win.
Exactly. We'll have all 3 different results against him. But I like the way you're going very early, mid-season. You're going very early with the table doesn't lie. I love that. That's proper cliches.
Yeah.
Right. A couple of little things that is coming out from after the match. Seen on various social media, Steve had an altercation with a fan, as it's been described. So apparently he told someone to F off. I was there, and I think he did. But I think he said, no, you F off, which would indicate that someone had told him to do it, and he was retaliating.
I heard what was said.
Yeah, do you know what was said?
I heard somebody shout that he was effing clueless and he should be sacked.
Right, fair enough. So I thought I heard no, you F off, but obviously maybe he just had you F off, whatever. But that's not the picture being painted. The picture's being painted is someone was giving some polite feedback. And we all know how that goes. I mean, I know that there seems to be still a whole thing against him because people are already saying, oh, he shouldn't be here. He's the wrong manager for this club. The guy does care about the club. He cares about this football team. He cares about his players. How can he win people over? Because there's people who are against him from the start. Literally, the first bad run, people are against him. We've had 4 wins in a row, doing really, really well. Suddenly, another little bad run, everyone's against him. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people are jumping up against him. How can he change this, George, in your opinion?
I think, personally, I like him. I like his style of football and everything. But I think for him to get more respect and love from the fans, he needs to get more involved with the fans. Like at the end of games, I think he should come and clap us and stuff, like all the other coaches and players do. I think that would help him.
Yeah, I know, and I've seen. He tends to go straight into the changing room, and that's because he's still in work mode and he's kind of wants to get his feedback to the players and all the rest of it. Yes, there's the moment after we win, we get John Meany running up. I don't think Steve's ever going to be that kind of person because on the wins, I think he's the kind of person who wants the players and the other staff to have that moment. But Neil, what do you agree? What do you think? Because whenever there's an event with him, he's very personable. So you were at the training day thing, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's very personable when you talk to him in small groups. But how do you think we can get other people on board and stop moaning every time something goes slightly wrong?
There are a certain element that even if we were to win the next 23 matches of the season, still wouldn't be happy.
Mhm.
So my feeling is they've got it in for him, and that's it.
Yep, stop trying. That's just never going to win them over. So
And I don't really care about them. I don't think anybody deserves to be abused for doing their job. They're not. Nobody does their job deliberately badly.
yeah,
Those of us who've worked have had days when you don't perform perhaps as well as you should or as well as you would like to, but no amount of abuse is going to make you work any better. And I think there needs to be respect.
yeah, and it's not even necessarily him having a bad day. It's people that are supposed to be doing what he wants having a bad day. And so it's like, what can I do? Like, I'm not the one out there not scoring. But yeah, I mean, I'm like you, and I know a couple of people find it quite distasteful. Every time there's a loss, it's always terrible, awful, loads of comments, 3-4 pages of comments. And when there's a good win, yay, well done. 1 or 2 pages. I mean, one other thing that's coming out is, I just find this one quite ironic, is the theme seems to be we shouldn't be losing to part-time teams. Well, a few years ago, we were finding people being very disrespectful when they were losing to us, saying we shouldn't be losing to the likes of Sutton. And I personally revelled in some of those tears of people crying because they've lost to Sutton. I mean, when did we become big time, Neil?
We haven't become big time. Some of us think that we might have become big time. Didn't Tamworth beat Huddersfield? So Huddersfield are a former Premier League side. So
Yeah,
that I think is ironic,
yeah,
to say the least.
yeah. I mean, I should do a little plug here. There are stickers and T-shirts and extra available on the Redbubble shop with hashtag likes of Sutton. George, what do you think? I mean, you're a newer supporter than some of the older ones. How is it for you, like seeing Tamworth part-time team beating us? Are you of the opinion we should be beating them purely because they're part-time, or do you?
Well, I think for one, that doesn't really mean anything because they're in the same league as us, so they're clearly just as good as us and just as good as the likes of Oldham, who are ex-Premier League teams. And also, I was there, and so you two. We used to be part-time beating bigger clubs than us, so that doesn't really matter.
Exactly. When it's so, I had not an argument, but a conversation with some Bradford fans when they were sort of saying that we shouldn't even be in the same division as us, and it's disgusting and all. It's like, but we are. That's because of our success and your failure. We're in the same division, so therefore we are equals. And it's exactly the same. We're not losing to a team 4 divisions below us. We're losing to a team in our division who've got there on merit, and we're there on merit because the other direction. We will quickly finish off with yesterday with another one: the good, the bad, and the funny. I remember which button did what. First of all, I think I need to give myself a pat on the back there. George, what was good for you yesterday? Again, on the pitch, off the pitch, it's the experience, whatever you like.
Well, I think the best bit was probably that amazing assist from Josh Coley.
Yeah, perfect. Neil?
Where would a podcast be if there wasn't something that's traffic related? And this is not just me. Jenny said exactly the same thing. There was the AA and the RAC predicting Armageddon on the roads and that everybody should leave extra early or travel in the middle of the night. So as a consequence, I travelled around the M25, and for the first time in living memory, I never came to a stop. It was like it was paradise. I got it virtually to myself, so much so I left early to get to the game and got there so much earlier. I even had time for a drink. I was like 45 minutes earlier than I anticipated getting to the game. So it was, the good was the lack of traffic, and it was even better going home.
Right. So, I mean, George, you chose Josh's Maisie run and assist, and Neil has completely ignored Will's beautiful finish to talk about the traffic. That's fine. That's fine. What was bad, Neil?
The bad. Well, I would say our response to losing, and the abuse, as I've mentioned before, for Steve, and some of the abuse at the sort of some of the comments about the players, that they're useless, and we should get better. We should get better players because they're letting us down.
Yep. Perfect. George, what's bad for you?
I think the worst bit was I think conceding the first goal was very poor defending. I think that was the worst bit.
Perfect. Neil? No, hang on. Done you. George, what was funny about the day for you?
I'm going to say you in a Santa costume. That was quite funny.
That was not funny. That was amazing.
It was amazing in a funny way.
The people who I sort of see all the time didn't even know it was me until I was like talking to them. They were like, "Oh my god, I didn't know it was you." Neil, what was funny for you?
Again, relates to the Santa. At first, I didn't recognize you. I didn't realize it was you until I got up close. But I have to say, you are possibly the most anorexic Santa that I've seen. You really do need to put on a bit of weight or have some padding, because you look sylph-like.
Don't worry, I'm off it all this week, so I'll there'll be definitely that happening. Well, my funny was I had more adults asking for photos than children, and one of them was Paul Brunson, and he wasn't very happy because when his photographer was taking it, I kept putting the thumbs down as if he's been on the naughty list. So we'll see which one Matt uses, but yeah, that was actually quite fun. I wasn't sure I was going to do it, and I just felt like, you know what, just go for it. What's the point? I'm not going to grow this beard again next year. Right, so next match against Barnet, obviously they're doing quite well. They won't want to lose to the likes of Sutton, little old Sutton, because they're big time. What do you think, Neil? How do you see it going? Do you see Joe doing us a big favour and scoring a couple of own goals? I don't even know if he's playing at the moment. But how do you think the match is going to go?
Going back to my runs, we only seem to lose 3 on the trot. We've lost 3 on the trot.
Is it 3?
Yeah.
We drew Halifax,
Altrincham, Tottenham, Tamworth.
Oh, West Ham. Yeah. Okay. All right.
So that's the 3. That's the 3 losses. So we're not going to lose. The other thing is Christmas miracles. Last year, Wimbledon.
Yep.
We tend to have a better Christmas than not.
Okay.
One of our EFL seasons, I think we were the only team actually to be 100% over Christmas and New Year. So I think it might be a Christmas miracle.
Perfect. So you're expecting them to get into them this week, and we'll get a reaction. George, what about yourself? How do you see it going? I mean, they're a good side.
Yeah, I think Barnet and for this league an amazing side. I can't see us winning, to be honest, but we do normally perform well over Christmas, so I hope so.
Yeah. Well, I haven't finished the leaderboard yet. I think Stuart's still in the lead. I don't think many people predicted yesterday's result. But early predictions. George, we'll start with you. What do you think is going to happen on the Boxing Day match as a prediction?
I'll be positive and say we'll win 1-0.
George obviously wants to come on the podcast again. That's good. Neil, what do you reckon?
I might say that we might win, but I may not have the courage of the conviction when it comes to trying to win the prediction league.
Fair enough.
But so it might be a draw on the prediction league, but here I'm going to say that Christmas miracle, that 1-0 win,
Okay.
or win by a single goal.
Right. I'm not. I'm going to go for a ding dong 2-4 to us. That's what I'm going to go with. I want entertainment. I want a game that I'm going to be gutted that I'm not going to be at. So that's what I want to happen. So I'll put that in. Don't forget to join in. The codes are out all the time. I've kind of forgotten to do the reminders on social medias, but I'll get onto that again this week. We're going to wrap up this episode of Sutton Podcast. We always appreciate the attention and feedback. Do let us know what is the best piece of Sutton United memorabilia you've got and what's the story behind it. Follow, like, share, comment on socials at Sutton Podcast. Subscribe. Give us a little thumbs up on YouTube. We're back Sunday after the Barnet match. I think I'm recording Friday evening, so I'll probably release on Saturday. And we'll be having Johnny and Chris. As always, thank you to Lucky Star Gin. Big thank you to Neil and to George. Andy was supposed to be joining us, but his missus is not well, so he's kind of doing all the bits and pieces that need doing. So I hope she gets better soon. Otherwise, Andy Rudge is going to have to be sorting his Christmas dinner out himself as well. He may well cook it, I don't know. But I hope she gets well soon either way. Thank you to listeners. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Sutton Podcast. Finally, I hope everyone who has contributed in some way to the success of the podcast, and that's a lot for me to say success. I've always downplayed the podcast, but I want guests, listeners, anyone sharing on the socials, the Lucky Star Gin family. I hope you all have a splendid, utterly splendid Christmas with your loved ones. And if anyone is alone at Christmas, don't forget the Alexandra pub in Wimbledon. I think they're open 12 till 3 for anyone who wants to come and share the Christmas day with other people. I think there was like 160 people there or something last year. So please all have a wonderful Christmas. And last words were Merry Christmas and to all a good night. Take care and we'll catch up soon. Bye-bye.
United! 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 United!